Warning, the following presentation includes large amounts of censored profanity in order to remain ad and family friendly. Every time you hear the sound, just pretend I say fuck. Viewer discretion is advised. Please enjoy.
Oh, fuck. Fuck me.
So there I was, about 300 feet over a nasty swamp in Florida, 0 viable landing sites within Glide, and my motor had just died. In this video, I want to share with you guys how I ended up in this predicament, the decision making I made along the way, and how I got out of it, and also why my engine actually died. I'll talk about that towards the end, but here's a hint, it wasn't the engine's fault, it was actually my fault. Before we get into it, if you guys want to get into the sport and have eagle-like instincts like myself, I have an opportunity for you. I've teamed up with Parajet and Aviator Paramotor for another epic giveaway where one of you guys will end up with professional top-of-the-line training at Aviator Paramotor, and you'll also go home with a shiny new Parajet Maverick. That's such an epic, life-changing prize, so how do you enter? Every $5 spent on tuckergott.com until February 28th gets you one entry to win. We've got 4 new t-shirt designs like this fantastic cloud kicker I'm wearing, 3 new decals, and 1 new hat. Once you've placed an order, fill out the giveaway form, which is the second link in the description. All of our stuff is printed right here in New Jersey on high-quality garments. You can find the full contest rules in the 3rd link in the description. Be sure to get entered before February 28th, and I want to give another huge thank you to Aviator and Parajet for sponsoring this epic prize. Okay, so let's rewind and give you guys a little backstory. As you may have seen, prior to this incident, I had just swapped a Vittorazzi Factory R onto my paramotor. At the time of the incident, the engine had 8.6 hours on it. It was still basically brand new. And I'm saying this not because it was an issue related to the engine, it was an issue related to the install that I myself caused. So on the day of the actual engine failure, we had planned to fly out of the subdivision that I have flown from before and fly out to a beach. Now between the subdivision and the beach was 2.7 miles of swamp that was basically not landable, and then another 2 miles of open water. As we know, paramotor engines are not 100% reliable, and as I always say, if you never want to have an issue with an engine out, always make sure you have a viable landing option within Glide and you won't have a problem. It'll be a non-event. But that isn't always the case. Sometimes we have to take a little bit of risk for maximum enjoyment. That is kind of the slogan of Risky Biscuits Co. I knew that the swamp was not a good place to land, but I was going to accept the risk of crossing it to get to the beach, and I decided to do so at a few hundred feet of altitude to at least give myself an opportunity to point at a soft bush. So I take off for this flight, I throw a couple wing overs, I'm feeling out the air, and it's windy, but it feels pretty smooth. Now I started to head across the swamp, and I wasn't filming specifically for a YouTube video, so I decided to turn my GoPro off, and in hindsight, I regret that. Shortly after I turned my GoPro off, my engine started shaking violently and losing power. My first reaction was 2 things. First, I wanted to get pointed back at the LZ and hopefully milk it home. And second, I needed to turn my GoPro on, and I did so ASAP. Obviously, my priorities were right on because I'm a YouTuber, I need to capture the content. My engine was about to die and I had to make sure I had it on film. Hopefully it was a good use of time because I hope this video gets a ton of views. Drop a like below. So the action of the engine shaking violently while I simultaneously started turning back to the LZ while simultaneously turning my GoPro on lasted probably 3 seconds. As soon as the GoPro started filming, the engine died. So from this point on, I'm gonna play the raw footage so you guys can relive exactly what I went through from the moment the engine died to the moment I was rescued and out of the swamp. After the raw footage, we're gonna come back and I'm gonna do a little debrief of what I was thinking in the moment and talk about the aftermath and what actually happened to the engine.
Oh, fuck. Fuck me. The f was that? Come on, baby, glide. Ugh, shit. We just had a motor out. And put it down! Yeah! I hope my GoPro's on. I'm shaking a little bit. That was fucking exciting. Come on, please be on. Yeah! Dude, this is kind of f***ed. Sorry, I'm using a lot of profanity. So what what happened before I turned the camera on was my engine started shaking violently. It was like losing power, and I was like, oh shit, better turn my GoPro on. Number one priority as a freaking YouTuber. And then step 2, the engine died completely, and I searched for my landing site and came into this wonderful little hole. Now what the happened? I don't see anything wrong yet. Hopefully there's no f***ing panthers out here. Throttle cable's good. Airbox is good. Let's walk over here. What kind of prints are these? I hope there's no damn animals out here. I could possibly take off right here if I had to. So I'm going to consider that as an option. See if I can get this running. I'm going to put this motor back on my back and see if it'll run. I can use my motor to fend off wild animals if I need to. She wants to. It like spins a couple cycles and then gives up. Let me pull the spark plug. Okay, spark plug was a little loose. Plug looks great. Smells like fuel. So I tighten the plug. I'm going to take this boot off because that honestly fits a lot better without that little guy on. Oh, dude, the mosquito's back here. Let's give her a go now. Holy shit. Whoa. My only other idea is something in the airbox. Carb is very wet. Nothing weird going on in there. All my electrical connections look good. If this doesn't work, I'm starting to hike out. So you start on. What the fuck? Okay. I'm gonna call it quits on trying to fly out of here. Something's not right. Let's establish a plan. Let's look at a map real quick. Okay. I'm literally on a trail that will take me out. Question is, let's measure the distance. Just so holy shit, man. I'm already at half mile. Damn it. Fuck. To my point, I am 0.7 miles just to get out of the swamp, and then I can have someone pick me up. I'm going to send Jeremy a message. I said head an engine out into the swamp area, 0.7 miles out on dry land, going to start hiking. All is good. Now we take the selfie. Why?
All right, so successful engine out. I feel good that I freaking put it down here, dude. I was looking around at the area and it all looked like garbage, like mangroves and swamp. And there's this little trail that like is a walking trail there, but it opens up a bit bigger. And I planted it right here. So I'll pat myself on the back today. Now I just get a lovely freaking
0.7 mile hike out with 12 liters of gas. God damn it. Fun times. Let's start hiking. Shit. But at least I get a good video out of it. Yay, the perks of being a professional paramotor YouTuber. You can crash in a swamp. Imagine I go the wrong way. Fuck, dude. Yeah, this is not good. 80 pounds on my back. As long as I get out without getting attacked by an animal, I'll be good. One consideration is if it's wide enough like this, maybe I can leave my gear, run out in the truck, just run out on foot, come back and get my shit. Drop my jacket. You know what, dude? I'm kind of feeling like that might be the smarter move. If it's wide open like this, I can probably get my truck in. I'm literally gonna wear my jacket for these bugs. Fuck. Look at this shit. I don't know if my truck would even do too well through this. Fuck. That's bad. That's very bad. Fuck me. Back to carrying my shit past this mud hole. I talked to Brad, and I'm hoping, holy shit, I'm hoping he can get part way out in his car and save me some hiking. Jesus Christ. Just gotta suck it up. First world problems. Crashing my paramotor into a swamp. Oh God. Good thing I'm not super allergic to mosquitoes. There's a fuckload of them. All right, I've fully committed. I'm just walking through straight up water now.
One of the road. I had to move a gate to get. Oh shit! This is muddy.
I'm not too far away from that lake. I'm headed right towards it, so I'll just keep it on, and hopefully I'll see you. All right.
Get there, then you got 2 people to carry stuff.
Cool. Thank you, man.
Yep. See you in a minute.
Sounds good. Okay. My man Brad is coming this way, but this is going to be slow going through this shit. There he is. Shin high. Is it dry over there? Yeah, thank you, man. That was shitty back there.
Yeah, that's why I just didn't want to drive through that part.
Ooh.
They're like climbing the car.
What's that?
Mosquitoes.
Yeah. That's nuts.
Something about white.
It might sit just against the tailgate. That's not too bad.
No, looks like it might be alright.
And I'll just straddle it and hold it.
Okay.
Keep my mud off your car.
Oh, don't worry.
Just want to make sure I don't fall out.
Yep, I'll do that.
Yeah, that feels good.
Okay. Let me know if
Dudes are just coming back. Yeah. Wonderful. Didn't get attacked by a pig. Didn't
They're
get a
wild feral pigs over there.
anaconda or any shit there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Frame's
totally.
okay?
Yeah. Just wet.
Just a little wet.
My
yeah.
poor vans are the only damage.
Good.
All right, so let's debrief and pull this apart a little bit. Obviously, my very first thought when the engine started shaking was, let's try to milk this home. Turn back to the LZ and get there. But like I said, that thought didn't last very long. When the engine actually shut down, first, I had this sinking feeling. I felt very vulnerable. I haven't felt that feeling in a long time because I knew I was gonna end up in this swamp and it probably wasn't gonna be pretty. Looking straight ahead, I didn't see anything good, so my first reaction was continue turning right and scan behind me. As I looked behind me, I still had no good landing options, so I kept on turning right back into the wind. Through this whole process, the thought of restarting my engine didn't really come into my mind because I was too low, it would have been a waste of time, and also I didn't have a landing area secured. If I had a nice green pasture, I would have had time to pull start, but the time was better used looking for somewhere to land. That was my priority. So at this point, I've made basically a full 360-degree turn since the engine started shaking. Now this is somewhat important because I was facing back into the wind. The winds this day were significant enough that I definitely wanted to land into the wind. Had I gone in downwind trying to aim for something else, I would have been going way too fast, could have potentially injured myself. So it was super important that I knew which way the wind was going and I landed into it. So at this point, I was about halfway down in altitude and I had a glimmer of hope. Right below me, there was a trail. It wasn't a big trail, but I figured worst case scenario, that trail is lined up into the wind, I can make it. My wing might get caught up in the mangroves or whatever was down there, but at least I'd be on a trail. Shortly after, probably around 100 feet, I could see an area up ahead that looked like something I could land on. Now on the GoPro, you can't even really tell, but to my naked eye, I could see that it was open enough that I could just barely stomp a landing. Turns out that spot worked out perfectly. I just barely made it, and you can actually hear my cage of my paramotor hit the tree as I'm coming in to this spot. I was on dry ground, into the wind, and had just enough room to kite my glider down without getting caught up in the mangroves. At this point, I was super stoked that I made it down safe, but I didn't really realize how difficult it was going to be to get out. So I went into troubleshooting mode. I started checking out the engine, and I figured if it was something simple like the spark plug cap had just worked its way off, I could plug it back in and I could take off without hiking out. Unfortunately, nothing I did seemed to help the engine run, and I basically decided I was just wasting my time trying to fix the engine and I gotta change gears and figure out how to get out of here. Initially, when I started hiking out, I thought that I could leave my gear and hike out, get my truck and drive it back in. The path seemed like I could drive on it until I got a little farther and realized it was deep water, deep mud, really swamp-like, and there was no way I was getting a vehicle back there. So I put all my gear back on again and started to hike out with the gear. And sure enough, I had 12 liters of gas. My motor was probably 80 to 90 pounds total with all the gear on my back. So I pulled out Google Maps, figured out how far it was actually gonna be so I knew what I was in for, and I contacted my man Brad, who is back at the LZ. One, I wanted at least somebody else to know that I went down and where I was, so I sent him my pin. Turns out the other two pilots that were in the air didn't even realize I went down. And two, getting in touch with Brad, we developed a plan that he would start coming towards me and I would go towards him. And luckily, he actually saved me about 0.3 miles worth of hiking. So shout out to you, Brad. Now, as I'm walking through the swamp, I knew I was gonna make it out before dark. I had plenty of time to cover that distance. But my main concern was animals. Wild hogs, snakes, alligators, cougars, they're all down there in Florida. One of the guys actually said he saw 3 wild hogs out that day, right before I went down. And I actually saw a wild hog there about a year ago when I was flying. Luckily, none of that happened. The worst thing I had to put up with was the mosquitoes. There were so many freaking mosquitoes, I was literally inhaling them as I was hiking. All in all, I felt super fortunate to get out, and the worst thing that had happened was I destroyed my favorite pair of shoes. But luckily, I washed them and they came out pretty clean. They do kind of still smell like swamp though. So let's talk about the aftermath. Why did the engine die? So I got in touch with Aviator as well as Vitarazi to try to collaborate with some other people and figure out what went wrong. The next day, I took my motor up to Aviator and met with Alex, who's the mechanic there. He's super familiar with paramotor engines and he's also an AMP mechanic for airplanes. So we started to go through the entire engine top to bottom. We tried everything, air to the spark to the fuel. We tried a new plug, a new coil, inspected the reeds, we cleaned the carburetor, we installed new membranes in the carburetor, checked out the piston, we even bypassed the fuel system with a direct line. Nothing was helping.
I'll be darned. But it's still not right.
At this point, my trip was basically over and I took the paramotor all the way back to New Jersey. Matteo from Vitarazi sent me an email with a lot of useful suggestions, and one of his suggestions kind of stood out in my mind. He said to basically bypass the kill switch circuit by unplugging the cable from the coil. Sure enough, I took the engine out here in New Jersey, unplugged that one simple cable, pull started it, and it ran like a champ. Now the next question was, where exactly on that kill switch circuit was the issue? Shortly after, I found the issue. Literally the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen, there was an abrasion in one of the wires that comes out of my throttle, which had been touching the carbon fiber exhaust bracket of the engine. Now, like I said, this is absolutely not the fault of the engine at all. The throttle I installed is my own throttle that I like using, and it requires you to attach those two wires. I should have been more careful in the routing of that wire. If you rewind back to when I filmed the actual install, you can see that it's dangerously close to that exhaust bracket. I should have tucked it away, taped it, done something else to keep it out of harm's way. So in hindsight, had I known that was the problem, I could have either secured that wire out in the swamp, or I could have unplugged my kill switch circuit. I just wouldn't have been able to kill the engine, and I could have flown out of the swamp. Looking back as an overall conclusion and lessons learned, one big lesson is be careful when you're doing an engine install like that. Be mindful of your wiring, even if you're modifying your current paramotor. These paramotors come out of the factory with all that stuff in mind, but when you start changing things or doing stuff yourself, you open up little tiny issues like this to happen. Second, I'm not going to tell you don't ever fly over a swamp or gnarly terrain. I just want to say if you do, know and understand the risk and make sure that it's worth it. I want to pass along another huge thank you to Vitarazi, specifically Matteo, for helping me actually diagnose this issue, and Alex for taking all the time to pull everything apart with me. And I want to give a huge thank you to Aviator and Parajet for sponsoring the giveaway. Make sure you get entered before February 28th. Check out the web store and maybe you'll find yourself on a crazy epic paramotor adventure, hopefully not when you crash into a swamp like me. Hope you guys enjoyed. Till the next one, peace.